encourage your soul, enlighten your mind, and empower your faith. This is the Light Network. Hello and welcome to Preachers in Training. This is the podcast on which we discuss all things preaching and ministry. I'm Robert Hatfield, and you know what? We're coming to you once again from the exhibit hall floor at Polishing the Pulpit in Sevierville, Tennessee. And it's good to get to sit down with people, and, you know, sometimes it's people we don't get to talk to an awful lot, and sometimes it's people that we talk to every season on Preachers in Training. And that is the case today as we welcome back Adam Faughn, the preacher for the Central Church of Christ in Paducah, Kentucky. Common, but no less special. Welcome back.
I'll take that. That works.
I mean, on the show. Hey. I mean, here.
That's okay.
You've been with us like every season. This is season 10. You've been on like every season.
I think that's actually correct.
Thank you for carving out so much time for us.
Well, I enjoy it. I really do.
There was the infamous summer that we recorded. I knew the Timothy season.
Yep.
And
I think we recorded seriously, like, 3 hours in one day?
I think
something
we did.
In that range anyway.
Yes, it was something like that. Thank you. Boy, I've put you through a lot, and you've been so kind, and I appreciate that.
Oh, I love it. I really do.
Well,
preachers are great.
Love having you.
Just love what you do, and so the fact that you're insane enough to ask me to be on here this often, you know,
no, this is fun.
is a sign of friendship, but also just a way for me to kind of give a little back for what the podcast gives to me.
Oh, no. Well, thanks for saying it. There was a time when we had this weird, like, Skype-only relationship.
That's true.
And it was
we honestly had met, once before we recorded a podcast,
yeah.
And like then we saw each other in Skype, like, all the time.
Okay. Twice a year, every season. I always know that Adam's going to bring the content and do it in a practical way, and that's part of the reason why, and we've probably talked about this before, I don't know, but every time we do a Preachers in Training survey, a topic like this one comes up. I think a lot of us struggle with time management. There aren't enough hours in the day to do everything we feel like we need to do all the time. So today we're talking about some specific ways to manage our time as ministers, and this is a listener-requested topic. I assume, I'm going to ask the question, but can you relate to this notion that there aren't enough hours in the day, not enough days in the week to get it all done?
I kind of feel like if you're a preacher and can't relate to that, you may not be doing your job.
Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Teach us your ways.
That's it. You know, and a lot of that comes from a great place. You know, that we want to do so many good things. There are so many opportunities. Not all of them are pleasant opportunities, you know, dealing with surgeries, sicknesses, those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. But the knowledge that there's no way we can get everything done, I think comes from a good place because we love God, we love people. Most preachers, not all preachers, want to do excellently with each thing they do, the sermons, the Bible classes, the visit, everything. And on top of that, if you're married, dealing with, you know, being a husband, if you have children, dealing with that, if you have aging parents, you know, trying to deal with that. And so everybody can relate to it. One of the things I'll say just by way of introduction is, you know, the name of this is Specific Ways. And I thought, I may not have all that many specific ways. And here's why. This really is one of those things where what works for me or what works for you may not work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Every person is different. Every ministry is different. Every eldership's expectation is different. And so we may mix some things in, but I've read all the books. You have too. You know, here's 7 steps. I read them and I go, that does not, you know, 2 of those maybe fit something that maybe, you know, and I took all the time reading the book that, you know, took away from what's going to help me.
Wasted all of this time. Well, don't even get us started on like the 10-hour work week and that kind of stuff, you know.
That would be nice.
It's not happening. But I think that's why, you know, we address this. Whoa, something big is happening in the background right now.
The children are having a lot of fun.
Seriously, the last episode I recorded, it was a solid 35 minutes of them singing VBS songs right under that cardboard tree over there, or plywood tree, and it was loud. Anyway, I digress. I think that's the reason why we get these kinds of topics every time, because we have people on, and it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of notion. So pick up a few things here and there. I like to hear, like, how do preachers negotiate their weeks?
Yeah.
But, it's like sometimes people ask me, what do you like about being a preacher? And, well, sometimes it's legitimately just that no week is ever the same.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's right.
That's a pro and a con, I guess,
Yeah.
sometimes.
And I'm one of those people, and you know me, I try to live by calendars, to-do lists, etc.
It's my safe space.
Yeah, it really is. And I do have, here's what I try to do on Mondays, what I try to do on Tuesdays, etc. But we're going to get into this a little bit. Just because you want it to go that way, not only may it not go that way, it may not need to go that way.
Yeah, that's right.
There are times where I really think this, quote unquote, has to be done, and then realize that was the last thing that needed to happen today. This other situation came up. This person came in, needed count, whatever it was. That really was more important than looking at the 17th commentary on Galatians to figure out what this one Greek word. Seriously, we can get to that point where it's like, is this really going to make that much difference in someone's life? And so, there are some specific stuff we talk about, but I've got some more just general principles that we can bring some specifics into, if that makes sense. So.
Awesome. So we have 4 of those today on how we can manage our time as ministers. Where do we begin?
Okay, I'm going to begin with the one that everyone expects you to begin with, but it needs to start with here. Every moment with God is valuable. And I put that first, obviously, because God comes first, seek first the kingdom of God, et cetera, et cetera. But I've heard this on your podcast 100 times. I've said it 100 times. I've not lived it 1,000,000 times. Preparation for sermons and Bible classes is not necessarily time with God.
Yeah.
There is great value in carving out time, making time specifically where it is you and God, not you and sermon prep, or not you and Bible class prep, where it is... Even if it's, we sometimes make fun of, well, I'm just reading my Bible today. What's so bad about that?
Yeah, right.
There are times I wish I could dive a whole lot more deeply into this text, for myself. But sometimes all I really can make time for is a daily Bible reading and some time for prayer.
Yeah.
But if we get so caught up in, I've got to get this sermon done, or I've got to make these 8 visits today, or whatever it is, that we're not spending time with God, then we're not going to have much to give people over the course of time, and we're not going to be close to the one that we're proclaiming. And that's a really scary place to be.
So if we're doing the old, college professor illustration about put the big rocks in first, this is a non-negotiable big rock. You got to carve out that time. How do you do that? I mean, are you a morning person, a late night person?
Very much so a morning person.
Okay. Yeah, how early are we talking here?
I get up at 5:30.
Okay.
So I'm not always like, I wake up at midnight so I can begin the day. I'm not that. But I get up at 5:30, and between then and when I typically leave for the office, there is time carved in there for at least Bible reading and prayer. Hopefully, sometimes a little more than that. Some type of devotional or something. But at least those couple of things, because and I don't believe this is a biblical thing. Like you have to thing, but that way I know that is done. I have spent time with God today because that was the first thing of the day. I know guys who are night owls. Wonderful. I think they're insane, but that's wonderful.
I would fall asleep in my Bible every day, and I'd feel terribly for it.
That's right. But if that's you, that's fine.
Right.
And again, that goes back to these whole, this is what works for me. Doesn't work for everybody. Everybody's different. I've read the books. Like I said, you have to, get up and do this. Well, there are people who are legitimately night owls.
Right.
That's fine. But that need, as you use the word, non-negotiable. And though whatever it is, whether it's minutes or hours, whatever you can give, to that part of your life, that's the biggest rock you can put in there.
Yeah.
And I think anyone listening to this would know this, but it still needs to be said. It's going to benefit your ministry whether you realize it or not.
Right.
You're probably this way too. What I might consider my quote-unquote best sermons, although they're probably C pluses at best, typically come from that. Not because I was thinking about that, but because it impacted me. And I thought, okay, if that impacted me, it might impact somebody else.
Yeah. Okay, so you said you're doing that before you leave the house to go to the office every day. Is there a reason for that? I mean, it's just because you're not in the line of fire where people can get to you, kind of thing. It's
that, and I'm the only early riser in my house. No one else is like a late sleeper.
Yeah.
But there's some time there where I'm the only one who's up. I can take a short walk, spend time in the Bible, either when people aren't up yet, or they're just they're still upstairs getting showers and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm alone. Yeah. And so that's what works.
Yeah. Okay, good. I relate to that deeply. Okay, so spend time with God and realize that's not time wasted.
Yep. Every moment with God is valuable.
Valuable. Okay, number 2.
Imitate Jesus' calmness. Now, it's enough to say imitate Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Right.
you could do 18 seasons of this podcast on that. Just imitate
That was
Jesus.
challenging enough.
Exactly.
And then you added the other one.
But here's why I chose that terminology. It's rare in the gospel records that we have a full day of Jesus. It happens, but it's very rare. And preachers have probably done this before. They've pointed out, from this verse to this verse, this is one full day, and you start going, how did he do all this?
Right.
But when you read those texts, I forget the chapters in Luke. I think it's about 2.5, 3 chapters of Luke where he tells us what basically amounts to a full day in the life of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's never rushed. He does all of this stuff, and some of it very intense stuff, dealing with false teachers or dealing with Jewish elites or dealing with people who are hurting, and all this stuff. And what we often point out is, and he still took time to pray. Yes, I'm getting that. Of course, that's there. But what also is not there is this feeling of he's hurrying to everything.
Yeah.
Or let's get this over with so I can get to the next thing. There is just a calmness about a very, very, very hectic life that I'm not imitating yet, but I'm trying to. I'm trying to see that with the interruptions, the difficulties, the to-do list that will never get done, there can still be a calmness if we're doing what's right.
Yeah.
And I think if we can learn to imitate that attitude, I hate to use the word inner peace because that sounds almost
right.
Eastern religionish.
Yeah,
but if we can imitate that mindset, it's going to be more conducive to us in our relationship with God above anything else, and to our ministry, because it comes across when you are sitting across the table with someone or at someone's bedside in the hospital or whatever. It comes across that you're trying to get out of there because you got to get to the next thing.
Yeah.
Instead of, no, if the next thing's a couple minutes late or whatever, we'll be okay.
It'll be fine.
This person needs to pray a little more, or I need to say something. Okay, we're all right. We'll figure it out.
Boy, the confession time. This is a safe space, right?
It just depends on how many people are listening.
It's just us. It's just us. There was an emergency several months ago, and my first thought was, okay, I've got this coming up in 30 minutes. I've got this coming up after that. Okay, so I've got this much time that I can run into this without impacting someone else. And I didn't mean that as though this was inconvenient. I just felt like I had to think through that to the day because I had sort of stacked the day. But I often think that way because, like you, I feel good in my routine and calendar and to-do list and all of that. And I don't know, when somebody comes in the office and they need, hey, you got a minute? Do you want me to answer that truthfully?
Yeah, the true answer is yes. A minute.
Yeah, 60 seconds, starting now. Okay. There's a shift that I have to make because, like, maybe I'm right in the middle of, like, this breakthrough thought that I've just had for this sermon, and I know if you take me away from this, my brain will not return until at least tomorrow. Or maybe Sunday afternoon after I should have thought of it for Sunday morning sermon.
I know what point 2 was supposed to be now.
That's right. But I struggle to not feel frustrated in those moments.
I do too,
if I'm being honest.
Again, this is something I have nowhere near mastered, but it's something I'm working on.
Yeah.
And probably will, personality-wise, I probably will the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But here's one of those places we can bring in a specific, but something that might help.
Okay.
And it's something I've talked about here with you before. I write sermons weeks in advance.
Right.
I mean, a long time in advance. I try to be no closer than a month out. Usually I'm more like about 6 weeks out.
Okay.
I'm not always there, and sometimes, frankly, the elders ask me to teach on something. Something comes up. That's fine. That's part of it. But as far as just what I have planned, that sort of thing. And so then if I have a week where there's several of those things, it's not that big of a deal because the sermons are done. I might have to take some time to make a PowerPoint or whatever, but sermons are done. It's just getting it back in my head is all that matters. So that doesn't work for everybody. It does help me some, but my personality still fights that big time.
Yeah.
But as I said, if we're going to love people, that does come across, whether we realize it or not, that he kind of wants to get out of here. And I really need him to stay for a couple minutes. I need some more prayer, or I need some more advice. And all we're doing is staring at the door, hoping someone will interrupt this person who's interrupted us, so they'll feel like they have to leave. And that's just not right.
Yeah, it's not. I think about Jesus said, Zacchaeus, I'm going to your house today. And we think about Zacchaeus and all that, and he's definitely the focus of Luke 19, but I'm like, well, I wonder what Jesus had in mind for that day, you know? I mean, I struggle. Okay, God, man. Okay, so did he know Zacchaeus was going to interrupt the day? But anyway, but still, like, he took time. Or how about, like, the woman with the issue of blood? Who touched me? And Peter's like, what do you mean everybody touched you? There's not anyone on this street who did not touch you right now. We're all packed in here. But he stopped and took the time, and that made all the difference. I mean, what we're reading about it, like, I have to go through Samaria, John 4. Well, no, you don't. Oh, I do. I need to go out of my way to interact with these people for a specific purpose. That was his whole, I mean, he really was like that.
Yeah, we'll go back to the example, the first one you mentioned, Zacchaeus, what's the King James, I must needs go to your house.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's the exact proper Greek, because I don't know Greek at all, but I love that translation of that verse. That's what I have to do. I'm thinking, okay, do you really have to?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I got to spend time with you.
I think that's probably what all the other Jews were thinking in that moment. Really?
Yeah.
Do we have to? Just because you're going, does that mean we have to go too? Yeah.
So imitate Jesus' calmness.
Calmness. Okay.
Do we just pause the podcast for a minute? Let people have a moment to breathe. You know?
That one hurt, but the people can pause it if they wish and come back to it a little.
It hurt me to write that one because I'm like I said,
But you're absolutely right. My to-do list is not more important than ministering. It's almost like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I was going to say job. I don't want to reduce what we do down to like job, but that is my responsibility.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. All right.
Number 3.
Make time and presence for your family.
Emphasis on the word make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there is a balance here.
Yeah.
And it's gonna tie into the fourth point in just a minute, but we do have a work to do. You said, don't reduce it to a job. I get that. But we do have an agreement. Here's what we're supposed to be doing. Here's the task the elders or the congregation, however, if you have elders, they've written it out, hopefully, and not maybe some men have. Here's what we're supposed to be doing, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe there are some specifics as far as time commitments and all those sorts of things. We can kind of go the other way and skimp on that stuff. And my kid, lost a tooth last night. I'm taking the next week off. Okay, But
don't be that person.
But a whole lot more of us, and notice the pronoun I use there, me too. Sometimes the ones who get neglected are the ones at home.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes true with our time, and it's sometimes just true with our mindset.
Right.
We're in the room, but we're not there. We are, maybe we don't make time as far as actually being present, and sometimes we make the time to be present, we're not actually present. My daughter just went to Freed Hardeman. I'm not going to see her all that much anymore. It's going to be breaks and that sort of thing. My son goes next year, so I'm almost done with kids being home
fast.
all the time.
Yeah.
And you get close to that, and it really does make you look back and think, how much actual time did I spend with them and with my wife? Yeah. Because tie that into the other side of that. Here in a few months or so, it's going to be the two of us again. And one of the things she and I have talked about a lot, leading up to this and as this is going on, is we love each other, but do we still even like each other? because we've spent so much time raising children and doing ministry and all that kind of stuff. Have we ever taken time just to be the couple? Because that's what it's going to be here fairly soon. And preachers are notorious for working so much that their families get left behind, or when they're with their families, their minds are still on that commentary they read today, or this other person's problem. And that's hard to fight, but you got to fight it. Yeah. And so be very, very, very intentional about making time and making your presence with your family. And again, that's something I've struggled with, but it's something that you have to work on. That non-negotiable big rock with God, this is another one. Yeah. If you literally, and here's a specific time management thing, if you literally have to put on your calendar date night with wife.
Yes.
Do it.
Right.
Because then someone calls you, hey, you want to go out to eat Thursday night? Sorry, I've got something. I've got an appointment.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't have to tell them what it is. Right. Frankly, it's none of their business.
That's right.
They sound unscriptural, but it's just the case. It is none of their business.
That's right.
It's just time with you and your wife, or you and your kids. I'm taking my son to a play on Friday night. Okay, I've got plans.
Yeah.
And those plans are not going to change, frankly, unless someone dies, and maybe not even then.
Maybe not then. Yeah, that's right. And at the end of the day, most people, thoughtful people, will understand. What they don't understand is how much our families already have to sacrifice in the name of ministry. Don't say that from a place of bitterness, and I'm sure you, like we're trying to do with our younger kids, are trying to help them understand that as best they can, and my wife helps that a lot. Daddy helps people do important things. This is important. He's trying to help them know about Jesus, or whatever it is that she tells them. But at the end of the day, that doesn't make up for the soccer game I missed or, whatever.
That's right.
And that's the stuff long term that they're going to remember. So,
and a lot of preachers, and I've done this, we homeschooled our kids. That helps a little bit, obviously. And our kids were not terribly active with extracurricular activity and stuff. That helps somewhat. A lot of preachers, will beat themselves up if they do miss the soccer game or the play or whatever.
Yeah.
That's probably going to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Just don't make it the norm.
Right.
Your kids are only going to be there a while, I'm big time taking a paraphrase and taking a verse out of context. The poor you always have with you, right? The lost you will always have with you.
Yes.
You're always going to have people to teach and everything. You're going to have your kids for so long.
Right.
You're going to have one wife. Those people are more important.
Yeah.
Make time for them.
That's a good point.
And make your presence known with them.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, this is challenging. What's number 4?
Are we encouraged yet?
Yeah, right. I know.
All right. The fourth one is to take work seriously.
Okay.
And this ties back to the last one. The other extreme is I can print a sermon off the internet on Friday afternoon and kind of memorize it Saturday night, and I'm a good enough speaker. I can pull it off Sunday morning. You were hired to. You and I, neither one like the word job all that much.
Yeah.
But you were hired to do a job.
That's right.
Take the work seriously.
Yeah.
And I've said this on your podcast before. Work when you're at work.
Yes.
It drives me out of my mind to hear preachers, talk about all this time they took off, all these other things they did, and maybe that's jealousy to some degree, but it's also like, that congregation hired you to be their minister, their pulpit minister, their youth minister, whatever it is. The elders probably have a specific agreement with you, and whether you keep office hours or not, however your schedule is designed, that's fine. That's between you and them. But there is an expectation of work. And I think a lot of people, and again, I've been guilty of this too, I think a lot of people get stressed with time because they're not making use of the time they've got. They're not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And so don't be lazy. When you're at work. I've said to you before, Robert, I wonder sometimes what our members think of us when they see us posting 7 times a day about minor league baseball and college football recruiting and this new movie you're coming out and thinking, what's he scrolling through all day to know all this stuff at 10:30 in the morning and 1 o'clock in the afternoon? And there's a place for breaks, of course. We have to have them. Our minds and our bodies can't take just sitting and studying Greek for 10 hours a day.
10 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Bible majors. Go ahead.
Yeah, and mentally, we need breaks from visiting people who are sick all day.
Right.
That does wear on you.
It does.
But work when you are at work, and that takes care of a whole lot of the time management issues. If we just simply this is my day, and I'm going to guard it as best I can. I'll deal with the interruptions, but I'm not going to, I've been working for 10 minutes. I deserve to go watch a movie. I deserve a 3-hour lunch.
Yeah.
No, I don't. That's not what they hired me to do.
There's plenty to do.
Exactly.
All right. That's good. And you know what, too? Sometimes I'll go home for my lunch break, and Emily will say, well, how's your morning going? And I'll say something like, well, I haven't gotten anything marked off my to-do list. But I've done some important things, had the drop-ins and whatever. It's been a good, productive morning. And, hey, when you're at work, at least when you go home, let's say you go home on Friday and you're not quite where you need to be for your Bible class on Sunday or whatever. If you've done your very best, at least you can go home with a sense of accomplishment that way, and you can feel good about what you did. And whereas if you spend all week loafing around and doing Facebook and whatever, or maybe even being involved in things, we have to triage good, better, best, and all that.
Right.
And anyway, you get in there and do the best you can.
There are, and you just gave a huge point. It's okay to say no to some stuff.
Yeah,
it's hard it's hard because we see the good. I could go speak here, or I could help with this counseling session, or be the silent partner with it, whatever. And all that may be the right thing to do, the best thing to do.
Yeah.
But sometimes the best thing to do is to say no, and sometimes the best thing to do is say no so I can spend more time with my family.
Right.
Or
Right.
I do have some other extra commitments coming up. Those need my attention right now. And I know I'm being interrupted with some other stuff, so I don't need to add anything else on top of that.
Right.
To add to. There is a time to say no, and it is okay to say. Jesus said no sometimes to get away and be with his Father, to spend all night in prayer. He said no to sleep to do that.
Yeah.
So there are times to say no to get things done. And just by way of encouragement, all God expects of us is our best. You know, my best may not be your best, Robert, because you have different talents, you're at a different congregation, different expectations, etc. And I may look and say, man, look at what Robert does in a week. You know,
No one says that, but anyway.
But if I've done my best,
Yeah.
that I can go before my Father in heaven and say, was I perfect? No,
Right.
but God, I gave you what I had.
That's right.
And so that's really all that matters in the end, is give God what you got.
Yeah.
And if the congregation doesn't appreciate that, that's
Yeah.
no longer on you at that
That's
point.
right. That's right. And there are weeks when we step in the pulpit, and because we've had marital counseling and premarital counseling and 2 funerals and a wedding, all in 1 week, we're not as prepared as we'd like to be. We haven't done the idealistic spend 1 hour of study for every minute that I've never done that. But anyway,
I was actually going to ask, have you ever actually done that?
Maybe early on when I had time. And I thought I was stressed as a college student.
Yeah.
Then I graduated, got in the real world, and thought, oh, boy, this is different.
Let's see, a
But
30-minute sermon, 30 hours.
30
I've got 2
hours.
of those a week, and 2 Bible
It
classes.
really makes you want to only preach like 10-minute sermons.
Exactly. This is going to be the best 7 minutes of wisdom. You're
know
about
what?
to get it.
You know what? I think a deacon probably came up with that just to mess with us preachers. That's what I'm thinking now.
We could take the PTP model, 7 minutes of wisdom. I mean,
I don't even have 7 minutes of wisdom.
7 hours of preparation. We can bring some 7-minute sermons. I'm telling you. Look
I
at
got 2 minutes tops. Okay,
that's what they gave me this week too.
Yeah.
They probably thought that's all he knows anyway.
They've gotten to know us now. It's after all these years. All right, we've been talking about 4 ways that we can manage our time as ministers, and review those for me because I don't want it. The wording was so carefully made. I want to make sure we get it just right.
Okay, so every moment with God is
Yes.
invaluable.
Yeah.
Imitate Jesus' calmness. Make time and presence for your family, and take work seriously.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, what's the word? Right? Because I've ninja'd you with the words before. I knew what you were doing.
Oh.
I knew what you were doing, but
Yeah.
But EIMT doesn't spell anything.
Oh, wow.
But it is a scramble of time.
It is a scramble.
And it's a reminder that our schedules are going to be scrambled. But with God, we should not be scrambled.
You threw me a curve there.
I knew what you'd be expecting.
That is great. That is great. Yes, but we are going to be scrambled. But, yeah. Boy, I think a lot about peace that passes understanding. Think about, is it in Nehemiah where it says the joy of the Lord is our strength?
Absolutely.
And, boy, these are passages that are top of my mind all the time. I feel like redeeming the time is not the struggle for me. Maybe it is, not in the sense of I'm letting it waste, in a wasteful way go by. It's how do I infuse the most in every moment? And that can be challenging. But, yeah, to say, okay, things may be all scrambled. Your day may not go the way you thought it would, but find peace in the Lord and let His priorities, should we say, guide the way you spend your time, whether that's how you planned to do so or not.
Exactly. And it comes back to, and I don't want to be like over emotional or anything like that, but at the end of the day, you may look back and, to use our word, you may have been scrambled all over the place. You may have had, I need to do these 3 things today. I got literally 0.1% of one of them done, but I made a difference in this person's life,
Right.
This family's life, or I got distracted on the study of something else, and that encouraged a future Bible. Whatever, we've all had the scrambles, right? We've all been
The scrambles.
I think I just made up a disease.
It's going around among preachers.
We've all had so much for this podcast.
Yeah.
This is my last time on Preachers in Training.
Oh, this is great. If you're going to do this every time, man, we're going to have you back every episode.
We've all had those days where we look back and thought, I didn't accomplish what I wanted to. But the part I don't want to be emotional about is if I didn't wake up tomorrow, I've still had a good day.
Yeah.
If that day was spent serving God, then what I thought I was supposed to accomplish probably didn't matter all that much compared to what I did.
Yeah.
And that's really how we look at time management. Is if I didn't wake up tomorrow morning, can I look back on today and say, I served God. Mm-hmm. That's all that really matters.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's good stuff. I knew it would be. Thanks for challenging us with our thoughts about time management, specific ways ministers can manage their time. Long and short of it is, we all struggle with this, and if you find that you're doing that, you're normal. At least as normal as you and I are.
Well, then we may need a follow-up then.
Go get your Scrambles vaccine and make sure you're thoroughly masked in the meantime. I think that...
Let's not go there.
We're not. Okay, sorry. Hindsight is 20/20, isn't it?
Oh, no.
That's going to do it. It has to. That has to do it for this edition of Preachers in Training. A quick reminder that new episodes are released every Thursday from thelightnetwork.tv and from our podcast partners. And if you enjoy the show, why don't you subscribe, follow, like, ring the bell if you're on YouTube, all that stuff that people say we need to do so that you never miss an episode. Hey, thanks again, Adam. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Appreciate you coming on. And thank you for being a part of this edition. Until next time, let's go preach the word.